Good afternoon, or is it morning? It's actually morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure for me to be here this morning, sharing with you about my thoughts, my meditations, and my absolute engagement with the environment and what's really happening around us. And for a moment, when I was asked to give a topic, I thought, is COVID-19 a curse, or is it really a blessing? And I just want to take you through a journey of my own thoughts, and then I'll engage with you at the end. So there have always been pandemics in the world. So from all the way back, we have seen life happening, humanity conquering, lots happening. There was smallpox, there were greatest plagues, there were outbreaks, there were fevers, HIV and AIDS, Hong Kong. There were lots and lots and lots of things that have happened in life. And now we're facing this current pandemic of COVID-19. So when I look back into the history and what has happened in the past, I started to ponder about, is this such a giant as big as Goliath that humanity, who is David, cannot conquer? And I started to have kind of like different views about it and thought, maybe we will conquer it. Maybe if we do come together, if we do develop a positive attitude, maybe if we apply some of the design thinking principles that I've been researching over the past decade, we can conquer this pandemic. Then I thought about, what is humanity up to right now? There's part of the population that is innovating, that is engaging, that is moving fast forward, making businesses, developing new ideas, growing, doing lots of stuff. And then there's part of the population that's at home, totally disconnected. David talked about part of the population that has no connectivity at home. Millions of Africans don't have connectivity. So I thought about 2020 and I said, some of the people in 2020 are experiencing what might seem like a gap in their resume, where they don't have access to the internet. They're totally disconnected from the world. They are in their townships, in their little rooms, in their little homes. They don't have any access. But then there's part of the population that is experiencing what we see on the screen, which is hyperconnectedness with families around us. And I'm sure if you are watching, one of those pictures are totally relatable to you. These pictures represent my life in the last week, the life that I'm not totally proud of, because from 7 to 6 every day this past week, I set up a little office in my house and I was working. And my kids, my family were in the house having totally no access to mom, no access to a conversation with me until there's a lunch break or there's a break. A total kind of disillusionment that happened in my home, because I brought in my energy from wanting so hard to make life to work, to make virtual learning to work, to make my delegates get the best experience out of this setup that we created. But meanwhile, I have a feeling that my kids were very much not proud of their mom. Dads are going through the same thing. A lot of us are posting the dilemmas that we are facing, having to work from home. And right here already we have seen the two interesting opposing thoughts about our current reality. There's part of the population totally disconnected, missing out on life, creating a gap in their resumes. Then there's a part of the population that's totally connected, but they might be missing out on an opportunity to connect with their families at a deeper level. And what else is happening? So we talk a lot about fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of these technologies. I think this is actually their moment in this 21 days or more than 21 days of lockdown, because we are feeding so much data to these devices. They are learning so quickly about humanity, what we respond, what we get up to. So every moment that you spend on your device, whether it's on your phone, your laptop, on whatever application, certainly your machine, your phone, your computer is learning so much about you that by the end of this lockdown, it will certainly know you more than you know yourself. So we are feeding some machine, but also there's the other reality. This is my daughter. This is what she's been doing 80% of the time at home. She loves drawing. Every moment is a drawing moment for her. And she's totally disconnected to virtual stuff, to devices. And she's just with her pen and coloring papers and writing the whole time. And she's in a totally different world than mom, who is always here in this hyper-connected world. Two different lives in the same space. The dilemma there is, how much do you actually want to feed all of your data to these digital devices and to the big machine? That's the question. Now, I thought there's a lot that goes on in my mind that I don't have enough time to talk about it, but there's just a lot. And it's as if life gave us this opportunity. 2020 started, we all had big ambitions. Life was great, 2020, lots of opportunities to access. I remember by mid-February, I'd already been to 4 cities. I'd already worked in Madrid, Barcelona, Cape Town, Johannesburg by mid-February. And life had to stop at some point for us to give us a moment of a pause. Some of us chose to run and translate whatever we were doing in our offices straight into our homes and continued to run as fast as possible. Some of us chose to stop and pause and listen and think quite deeply about, what is this? Is this some kind of a wake-up call to stop, rethink, reframe, reimagine? So my invitation for the next 10 minutes is, can we just stop for a moment and pause and think and just see what happens when we just redefine life? Now, all of us went into 2020 with this big promise. Now, my question became, how do we shift our thinking to unlock this promise in the current status of COVID-19? How do we use it to reframe? How do we use it to shift our thinking? How do we use it to still access this promise of the big 2020 that we have been told about for so many years? Now, Sid Pans once said a long time ago that we can all create a desired future instead of merely accepting what life offers us. And come with me on the journey of creating a possible reframe of COVID-19. So I played around with this concept of, what if we could positively reframe COVID-19? What if each letter of COVID-19 represented some kind of positive energy that we could use to shift our perspective and use it to serve humanity, to serve ourselves? And then I said, what if the C could be, how do we allow this moment of such rich virtual connection and virtual conversations across industries to create new industries that serve the future to eliminate or address the problem of unemployment that we're facing in the country? What if we could use it to access opportunities that come out of this collision of industries? What if we could create a new vision based on these opportunities? What if we could each find our place of passion and purpose and redefine work, redefine what we are about, and find our place of ikigai, living a life of purpose? What if it could lead us to start to be a whole lot more divergent and think outside of the box? And I thought about 19 and I said, well, from 19 into 2020, what is that 1% shift that will give you an edge? So when we talk about the collision of industry, I think this is something that has been happening, but not at a rate that it should have been happening. And I drew from a few principles of design thinking that I thought could help you to explore as you think about how do we get, innovation comes from industries colliding. Innovation comes from multidisciplinarity. Innovation comes, usually your own innovation in your own industry will not come from within your industry. You need to get out there to co-create with other industries. What kind of principles should guide us as we seek to create with other industries? Now, the first one that came to my mind, which is the A of design thinking, in a booklet that I wrote on the ABC of design thinking, and it's the very first principle, is ambiguity tolerance. The power of not knowing. We are in this space together and we cannot claim we know a lot. When you go to another industry and seek collaboration, the first thing that we have to agree on the table is that we come from a place of not knowing, so that we can generate new knowledge. Nobody knows the future. Nobody knows life beyond COVID-19. Nobody knows what's going to happen in 2021. Nobody knows the next revolution. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But if we get together with an intention of co-creating, creating together and letting these new industries emerge from our collaboration, then we need to remember our knowledge of the past will not serve where we are going into the future. So that power of not knowing and staying in a place of ambiguity for a while and allowing that tension to develop of not knowing, that's where the innovation is going to come from. The second principle is that of creativity. Creativity actually has a formula. When we talk about creativity, we don't talk about the arts or music or color, even though you see a splash of color on my screen. We talk about the big C creativity, which involves both imagination, but also rigor and analysis, deep analysis and an attitude. Creativity actually has a formula. It's a function of knowledge and imagination. You evaluate your options, and it absolutely needs a good attitude for it to work. How do you cultivate creativity in this virtual space? How do you engage with people from a place of assuring them that they are creative and you are creative, and building creative confidence before you engage with each other? The last one that I want us to explore is the principle of diversity. If we're going to talk about multidisciplinarity, collision of industry, engaging with others from different industries in order to generate new knowledge, new insights, new industries, diversity is important. You can't have brainstorming sessions with the same old people from the same department or from the same discipline. You have to make sure that all your brainstorming you do with people who are different from you, different from different backgrounds. And when we talk about diversity, it's not just about race or about gender, it's about diversity of disciplines, diversity of knowledge, diversity of how people think and even approach problem solving. Now, opportunities. How do we connect to these opportunities? It's pretty interesting because I just accessed the opportunity of virtual learning that we have been exploring, and we've been using the Zoom platform to continue educating. And then I thought, why don't I use the same platform and connect my pastor from Lesotho, and we continue church in Lesotho. So I've just been to a 1-hour church service from my pastor back in Lesotho. And it's just an opportunity that I thought, why did we have to wait for COVID-19 to make this happen? Because this could have happened a long time ago. We could have been setting up virtual churches. Why have we been leaving home to go to churches, or leaving home to go to prayer meetings, or leaving home to go to some of the meetings that we could have done virtually? So what kind of opportunities are we going to access, and how are we going to open up to new thoughts instead of being oppressed by this current environment? Then the next thing is vision. So this is the V in COVID-19. Where are we going as a human race? What are the biggest questions that we should be asking? And also make it personal. What's your personal vision in life? Shouldn't we just sit back, reframe, refocus, rethink, and ask ourselves those fundamental questions, and use this COVID-19 situation to connect to those elements that are essential for humanity to continue to emerge strong? Then the I in COVID-19, I thought, is ikigai. What if this moment was used for you used this moment to connect to your passion, to what you love to do in life, to things that you enjoy doing, and then connect those to things that you are skilled at, things that you master, that you have gained mastery in, and then you connect that to things that the world might just need right now, and things that the world is willing to pay for. That intersection right in the center is purpose. It's your dream job, and it's a place where you find true vocation, because you never have to work again if every single day you are living out of your passion and to continue your level of mastery, because your being is in everything that you are doing. Could this be a powerful opportunity for us to just reframe and connect to that ikigai? The D in COVID-19, I thought, was divergence. How do you become a divergent individual? An individual that suspends judgment, that seeks quantity of inputs and insights from multiple sources that are different from yours, that embraces difference, that embraces divergence, that embraces thoughts or things that are totally not in on your own lane. Now, I want to use an example here with my friend John Flismas, who's hosting me as well in this webinar. When I first met him, I hated him. I thought, what's going on with this business school? I thought we're going in different directions: male, female, black, white, atheist, Christian. We had every reason never to work together. But in that moment, I realized that I'm on a journey of becoming a divergent. And this is the exact kind of person that I need to bring rigor of argument and insight into my life, a very different life perspective, a very different view on things, because he stretches me. I get to see things differently. So we both kind of turned around and started to negotiate. And now we run a business together. We're colleagues in many aspects. We do some of our best facilitation work together because of our willingness to use each other to give perspective and to diversify insights. So I'm challenging you to think, who is that one person in your life? The one that you just don't gel with, you think they think different thoughts from you. Who is the person that you can start to bring closer into conversations to walk with you and to make you to be much more open? Now, what is this 1% based on this COVID-19 acronym that we have spoken about? What is this 1% shift that we can make from 19 into 2020? My thoughts, and they're just in the next two slides and I'll come to the end, is we can choose a different tomorrow as a human race. We can choose a new way of living life. We can choose to be new. We can choose new ways of being, new ways of working, new ways of family structures and communities and cities and societies that do differently. And we can choose to define ourselves without necessarily feeding the beast, change the way we see, we think, we live, and decide what type of the world we want to live in. And I think this is our opportunity as humanity. So my inspiration and challenge to you is, as we get busy, extremely busy, trying to make sure virtuality works in delivery of our services and try and gain money and sustenance through this dark period, let's remember to pause and shift and reframe to a positive mindset and start to dream again. Write down every day a couple of things around things you're passionate about, what you're good at, what industry might be starting to look for, and deliver yourself from the systems that don't serve you. Define what I call the double dare loop, your greatest imagination, where that place inside of you where you know you're living your purpose. Dream again and then do it. And give yourself those pauses. And that's the inspiration that I have to offer for today. Thank you.
Beautiful, Puleng, thanks. I'm sitting here percolating my ikigai, and I just loved what you said, what you love to do in life. And I absolutely agree. This is a good time, no better time than now. So thank you very much. We've got some nice questions here. I'm going to start with Divi. Divi notes, just read an article on my broadband. It makes mention that the lockdown may continue for a few weeks longer. We may be tested for a while longer. How does that affect the blessing versus the curse?
So, as I said, everything in life, I believe, it's about how you reframe it. My invitation is to reframe this situation right now into positivity. Now, this situation can last another 6 months, can last another 9 months. But those of you who have a positive mindset, if you have a positive view of life, you can develop the strength within you to overcome and conquer in this very space. That time frame won't even matter anymore because you'll be lost in thinking deeply, in designing, in creating, in making life work in the current circumstances.
Yeah, I love that. The reframing is about one's ikigai as opposed to the duration of the lockdown.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Sphere notes that Puleng, love your illustration of the different perspective in your home. Great slide. Learning from children and how their behaviors counter the assumptions we make about who does what under what circumstances. It's a comment by her. She goes on to say, the machine metaphor, especially mind, is a great computer. What are your thoughts about whether organic living systems thinking metaphors may get more traction with public sector and corporates? Any early signs, even weak signals?
the machine metaphor, especially the mind, is a great computer. Yeah. What are your thoughts about whether organic living systems thinking metaphors may get more traction with public sector and corporates? Any early signs, even weak signals? So this is interesting because I also work with a company that uses big data to do good. So we're currently doing a project for a bank using big data and data from clients of this particular bank to do for people to manage their finances better. And we are very clear in this company about our intention that we do not serve any propaganda or any usage of data for the bad, but we use it for the good. So of course, there will be systems and there will be companies and there will be people and possibly governments who will use data for propaganda and for different things. But I think there's also an opportunity for a few of us throughout the world who can choose to still use artificial intelligence, still use machine learning, still use data, still use this current environment. Yes, all of that learning, but use it to shift something fundamental in life for the good. Yeah. I like what John Flismer said yesterday about the people who came in to ruin the seminar. And he said, well, those are just mosquitoes and we don't give them oxygen. We give oxygen to people who are here to gain knowledge. I like that because it's about, yes, there are people who are going to use this data for bad and to do bad stuff, for control, for all sorts of things. But if a few of us, especially in this COVID-19 situation, use that data, use that machine learning, use algorithms to develop machines or systems that serve us as humanity for the good, I think that's important.
Yeah, indeed. Something that was a very significant theme in Tom's lesson yesterday was exactly what you've been talking about now, is what we do, how we do it, the ethos that we draw upon to do what we do for the common good as opposed to for personal or organizational gain. I just wanted to, the quote that you were referring to that John mentioned yesterday, apropos of the intrusion of the trolls. He said, problem with building a lighthouse, draws mosquitoes as well as genuinely interesting flying creatures.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's amazing. Anne wishes you a joyous Palm Sunday. And then Morgan notes that your next innovation is not going to come from your organization, which is a quote of you. Then when completing my application form for the Henley MBA, I was asked to write 500 words on what I've learned in my current organization, and I couldn't get beyond 96 words. I learned more from self-study, engaging mentors, TED Talks, webinars, autobiographies, and more. What can organizations do to combat this?
To combat what?
Morgan, do you want to pop it into the Q&A to clarify to combat what? I'm just having a look at it now. She's probably writing. We can come back to Morgan's note just now. Just finding my way. And then Molefi asks, if you have a close relationship with someone who fundamentally disagrees with your religious beliefs, don't you think you are compromising yourself?
Not at all. And thank you for that question because it's very important. So I don't like religion, but I love the Lord, because religion is, to me, a system that is put in place for control. And I grew up in a religious environment. I grew up in an environment where I was subject to a religious system. But when I was 18 years old, I made a decision, and I clearly distinguished between religion and having a relationship with God. And I chose my path and my journey. And in choosing this path and understanding, my particular religion is Christian, my particular belief system is Christianity. I realized and learned that Jesus Christ also was very free to have conversations with all religious leaders and challenge even religions that were supposed to be aligned with his own religion. He hated the religious system, but he had conversations, and he loved, and he challenged, and he engaged. And I learned very quickly that, yes, as young Christians, we love to, the leaders love to protect us and to build us and so on. But at some point, you're not called to your own. You are called to the world. And if you're called to the world, you have to engage with the world and confront the difficult questions and engage and see the world from other people's perspective. You can't just live with one perspective. See the world from different perspectives and also learn and open up. I've learned a lot from people from different religious systems. I've learned a lot from people who don't believe, because I'm open-minded and I'm learning. And that doesn't make me to drift away from my core, which is my love for the Lord Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Good, continuing from that, Samuel, belief systems like culture and faith are often criticized for promoting herd mentality and stifling divergence and creative thinking. Yet you seamlessly brought in your faith. How do our belief systems become enablers of creativity and innovation? Beautiful.
So it's the thing is, the belief system itself is the core, because we believe we're created by this creator who has created billions of us with a different fingerprint, with a different internal structure of interpretation, as we say it in coaching, with such uniqueness, and continues to create human beings. Such a creator who we believe has created the planets, the galaxies, the earth, the mountains, water, rain, everything. A creator who we believe has created us in his image, and his image is that of creation. So creativity is our core. It's our DNA, it's our soul, it's who we are. It's just that we got subject to a system, to a society, to a schooling system, to an environment that slowly subjected us to so many other things that challenged this core and molded us to become what they expect us to do. So when you look at just the research on creativity, when we are the first 1,000 days of a child, they say they use 100% of their creativity. When they get to age 5, it's dropped to 98. When they get to age 8, it's dropped down to 32%. And as adults from 44 onwards, we use 2% and we only recover it at retirement. That says a lot about how we were born. We were born with it. What happened? What undid it? What took it away from us? That's what we have to recover, and we need it for this emerging new world.
And, you know, based on those statistics, is the interesting thing on the, if it was a bell curve on the sort of further end of it, meaning retirement years, creativity returns, the percentage of creativity increases. Clearly what's being called out in us within the world of work and adulthood and so on is what is required of us to maintain a greater level of creativity in our thinking and execution of what we do. It reminds me of that. I guess that speaks to what you were sharing with us around that, the relationship between ambiguity tolerance, and creativity confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's no better time to increase our tolerance, not as a bravado exercise, but as an increase in fortitude exercise of ambiguity tolerance, because there's no shortage of that right now.
Yeah.
Good. Bear with me. Sam asks, please talk some more about the double dare loop.
Okay, so if you want to connect more with it, I would advise you to watch Hot Wheels, and I got this video from my kids, Hot Wheels video, where they advertise Hot Wheels. Very interesting, yeah? So they show us how they were testing, you know, Hot Wheels, those small cars that kids love to drive and race through a track. And so they show us how they are very strong around prototyping and testing, and then they will send the first one and then it will crash, and then they will go and learn and connect to the learnings and then do it differently, and then this time they will go in and another person will go in and drive, even though it's just crashed. A human being will take the risk and go in and then drive through that track and then do a double loop and come out the other side as conquering. Yeah, it's super risky. It is so risky, but they do it because in that moment, they're so imaginative, they're so positive, their hearts and minds are in this, and they're passionate about only one thing, which is to make it work. Yeah, and they speak about the double dare in that case, that every time they design something, most of the time initially they fail, but then they take that moment of failure and they learn from that moment of failure, and then they do it with much more rigor the second time around, and then they do it the third time around, and this time after doing it twice, they send it out to the market. It's kind of like the energy that they use throughout their delivery. So I began to wonder, in this COVID-19 moment, what if we could connect to that energy of, fine, here is this machine in the house, here's this connectivity for those of us who have connectivity, and I'm aware that there are many millions of people who don't have this connectivity. Here it is, it's in the house. What is the power of this machine, and what is it that you can try, that you can deliver, that you can do, that you can test, and then learn? Even if you fail the first time, learn, apply rigor, do it the second time, learn, apply rigor, do it the third time, until it becomes something that you launch into the market. At the end of COVID-19, guess what? You'll have a product that's tried and tested, and you would have given all of your energy into testing it. Now, I thought about this, I just didn't have enough time. When I did the first Lesotho's e-commerce website in 2002, and I was very disappointed in 2020 with retail, wholesale and retail group of executives who were still having a debate around, should we deploy e-commerce or not? This is something that has existed for over 2 decades, and you're still having debates about whether to deploy it or not. We started talking about online education and virtual education from 2005 at UCT. I used to work for Central IT at UCT. Only now, literally, lots, maybe thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of schools are delivering online education and virtual education now, just because of this moment of COVID-19. So my question is, why does COVID-19 have to be a driver of innovation? Why didn't we think, why did I only launch this chat for my pastor, for all of us, from people from Manchester, from wherever, only just listened to my pastor 18 years later? today. Why didn't we think that we should set this technology up such a long time back and had this opportunity? So my ask is, fine, we have learned. Now, how do we continue this as a spirit and as a driver of innovation without waiting for a disaster or waiting for a calamity or a pandemic in the world to drive innovation? How do we develop this as a culture of thinking of being, which I was hoping with that new acronym of COVID-19, those are principles that you can start to use to just shift your thinking, to start to think like an innovator, always, without the COVID-19 moment.
I love that. And also there's what this period for us has also reminded me of is how there's a very fine line between innovation and us too. Meaning, you know, is it really, to your point, is it really innovative to be sort of take learning online? To your point, no, it isn't.
No.
What is and can be highly innovative or completely boring and pedestrian is how that's done, you know. And I think I'm very excited about learning more about Ikigai, because, you know, we talk about the purpose of an organization, which is exactly that. A very powerful thing. Just doing a time check. So we've got so many questions and comments, and clearly we won't get through all of them, but Puleng, we'll share the transcript with you, and then you can reach out to folks putting questions to us that we don't get through here. It's kind of an interesting one. So Patricia says, I had a dream that Nelson Mandela was saying to me that he is worried about his children in the townships. How do you think he would have handled COVID-19 as a president and leader?
Sure. I wonder too, and I won't even be presumptuous and try and respond to that. But it's I mean, as I was thinking about integrative thinking and the different perspectives, I literally was thinking about us in the cities, the access that we have, the access that our kids have. And literally, I have an aunt in the townships in Tembisa who, how do you stay 2 meters apart from each other when there's 11 of you living in a 2-bedroom house and no access to internet and devices? And how do you continue learning in that environment? And that makes millions and millions of people. So it is tricky. I won't even attempt to think about how Mandela would approach it, because I think he was such an exceptional human being that I wouldn't even attempt to step into those shoes. But empathy and thinking quite deeply how we step out of this situation as humanity. We often talk about this gap between the haves and the have-nots. We often talk about this huge gap between those who have access and those who don't. And it's been a verbal kind of thing that has gone on in every discussion in government and policies and with private sector and so on. Could this COVID-19 moment be a time to think, act, as I would call it? Think and then do something about it.
I love that.
A moment to stop and to redefine, and then come back. As when we come back with a different plan and a different strategy and different policies.
Indeed, and John Fismus reminded me the other day of using the metaphor of the bow and arrow, and I'd heard it a long time ago, and he mentioned it. You know, we need to pull back to shoot, and I found it quite profound, which is also what you are sharing with us now. Is sort of also there's a theme right throughout what you're sharing with us is to calm down, calm down and let's be measured and call upon our intelligence. And going back to what you were talking about, Mandela just now, it reminded me of how prone to sort of heroic leadership we are, and how in the kind of context of post-heroic leadership, I'm just thinking about how completely appreciative we are of President Ramaphosa's addresses that are coming at quite regular intervals, and how he is the public face of our country and a lot of Africa as well through his chairperson role, and how he no doubt is surrounded and backed by an extremely competent and helpful team of advisors from the medical fraternity, from the financial services, and so on and so on and so on. And that's also something for us to always remember in our own management practice, our own leadership practice as well, is that even if you are the physical voice, is that generally the amount of really helpful contribution and ideas and suggestion comes from often quite a few people beyond that individual. An anonymous participant just notes, our business has been hard hit by COVID-19. Reframing the situation to have a positive perspective helps me and my partners to stay afloat. That's huge. And I would, believe, I can tell you for sure from my perspective right here and chatting to you right now, is that it's had I would suggest that it's had an impact on every single person that is on this call. And there were over 200 of us to not once we're off the call, but right now in real time to be, doing a due diligence on self.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a time check. We'll do two more questions and then we can adjourn for today. So Gerald notes, Puleng, you implied that this period will rightfully prop up artificial intelligence as machines are learning a lot due to our enhanced engagement with tech platforms. Given the astounding stats around how many people are not connected, how much do you think we are losing in terms of the excluded learning, i.e. the absent learning from the disconnected ones?
Yeah, obviously a lot. Obviously, it is learning human behavior from those who are connected. And does that represent a sample of the population? Maybe, maybe not. But if machines are able to learn from a couple of millions of people in Africa who are connected, then obviously they can make some conclusions about the human race and they can do certain things. So there's, and also don't underestimate how connected we are, because Africa surprised the world, isn't it, with the adoption of the cell phone a couple of years back. Yeah, with lots and lots and lots of people having access to a cell phone, and what that access does and what kind of information people are giving this through WhatsApp communication. When you wake up, you're on WhatsApp. That cheap access to just the WhatsApp platform, don't underestimate how much of that data is being collected. It's not just the Zoom and all these other sophisticated platforms that the rest of us are using, but even just that telephone call, that WhatsApp message that's been exchanged, we'll be surprised how much of it is coming from those that we think are not privileged. So there's a lot of data that's at play. We shouldn't underestimate that.
Sure. Um, I was just thinking now, during your response, there's an organization here in South Africa called Snaplify. And I attended a talk by the founder and owner of the organization, and he mentioned that one of the greatest data access periods is between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. And people were like, that's weird, that most people aren't online. And this is specifically school children access to learning materials. So then we go, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And he qualified how this works is a lot of children, what's particularly powerful about the platform is that students can access learning materials without data, so they don't have to have a connection to the internet. So, okay, fine. So why in the early hours of the morning when people would be assumed to be asleep? Well, here's the thing, is a lot of children from rural areas are traveling great distances to school. So they have to get up really early in the morning, and generally on public transport. And while they're traveling, they are accessing this learning material. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing.
I also wouldn't be surprised because we get free data from midnight up until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And millions of people who don't have access to extra money, they use that. So that's the time that you would do all of your work. That's the time that you would exchange. That's the time that you would communicate, because you have access to most of the free data from most of the cellular networks would be within that time. So that wouldn't surprise me as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll put one more question to you. I won't tell you who asked this because I want you to work it out. What do you think business schools should be doing now?
Interesting, because I feel like I'm going to be biased as I answer it, just because I work with Henley Business School as my preferred business school to work with. And I am very much at awe at the approach and at the way that they are dealing with and confronting this COVID-19 situation. Firstly, to be working with a technology partner, which is what you need as a business school, to acknowledge that, okay, fine, this is no longer about just dry education and delivery of content. This is now about going into a different platform and technology playing as equal a role as the subjects that are being delivered through the technology. So having a technology partner upfront who partners and understand your vision, your purpose, and buys into it and walks the journey with you. So they walk even this double dare loop with you, where as you fail together, and you learn together, and you move on, and then you fail and learn together. And then also, more importantly, which is the C in COVID-19, which is the collision of industries, is bringing your clients into conversation, because the clients are equally desperate for learning to continue, for education to still continue, for empowerment to still continue in the midst of this situation. So if your approach is that of, let's partner, let's make it work together, let's fail together if we fail, learn together, if we fall together, and we rise up together, and to walk that journey together. And then, most importantly, was the call to collaborate with other business schools. So I think collaboration is a big part of it. So right now it's about competition and collaborating with competitors to increase your slice of the pie, so that virtual learning and virtual business education is more appealing to a bigger market share. So I think that that's the right role that business schools should be playing. An extra mile would be to also look at this opportunity, which is the O in COVID-19. the opportunity now to, beyond business schools, beyond IT partnerships, what if this is the call to also collide with other industries, reimagining with industries, reimagining the financial sector with banks, reimagining the future of mining with mines, and then creating a support system, becoming a learning partner as they reimagine themselves into the future. Because I think what's going to happen beyond COVID-19 is lots and lots and lots of our industries are going to be reimagined. They're going to operate, the ball game is going to change for most businesses. So if a business school became a learning partner, because learning is going to become critical for all the organizations as they reinvent themselves and reframe and redefine their existence in this virtual world. So I think that's another level to it. And then also leveraging, because virtuality now gives us access to global. So it means now literally we can have a full day program where half of it is run by a professor from another country and a professor from another business school or another country, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden it has dematerialized, demonetized, and dematerialized this learning environment.